Story 1. Because they do not seek out power, people who want to be leaders make choices that will grow or maintain their influence. Those who do not aspire to leadership are much more likely to act for the common good. Story 2. A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done and his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did it ourselves." Story 3. Great leaders possess humility and empathy, along with the ability to provide clear direction based on their understanding and analysis. Story 4. People who aspire to be leaders often have personal motives that may not serve the greater good for the majority. Story 5. Most great leaders do not need to keep telling people that they are great leaders or brag about it. You never heard Churchill give a speech where he talked about himself. Only ineffective leaders feel the need to constantly tell people how great they are. Story 6. I think that is too simplistic. The best leaders are those who see it as a responsibility rather than an opportunity. Story 7. Because they end up rising to fill a role during a time of need when they are the best suited, or people look to them the most. At least that is how it might have used to be. Story 8. I view it this way. Why do people want to be leaders? What are they hoping to achieve? Most likely, it's recognition, which often indicates a lack of important inner development. If not recognition, it might be a desire to exert power or enjoy the status that comes with leadership. That rarely leads to positive outcomes. Why do people choose not to be leaders? They understand that a good leader works hard and often receives little in return. They recognize that if they adhere to the rules and do the job correctly, they are in for demanding and frequently thankless work. Story 9. I believe there are many people who want to be leaders and would make good leaders. The problem is they are often outmaneuvered by skilled salespeople, and we keep being misled by them. Consider this scenario. You have a computer virus and must choose between Alice and Bob for help. Alice understands the issue and is committed to being honest. She tells you that realistically, she can fix your computer in about 4 hours. Bob, on the other hand, lacks knowledge but wants your money. He lies, claiming he can resolve the issue in 15 minutes. He presents himself confidently while doing so. Excited by Bob's pitch, you choose him. He attempts to fix the virus by simply disabling the error messages, creating the illusion that the problem is resolved. You inform your friends about how impressive Bob is and how ineffective Alice seems because she takes 4 hours for what Bob promised to do in 15 minutes. Your friends become convinced of Bob's so-called expertise, and soon they all give him money to address their computer issues. Everyone is satisfied for a few days, but then problems begin to surface and computers start crashing. By the time you realize that Bob did not fix your computers, he has vanished with your money. This story illustrates that individuals who are willing to lie have a significant advantage over those committed to truthfulness. They can craft any narrative about how they will resolve your issues, which will always seem more appealing than the reality. Story 10. Narcissists love power and control, and they are confident that they will succeed whenever they set their minds to it, and they often do. However, narcissists do not make effective leaders. Consider historical examples. Story 11. If someone believes they are capable of leading a country better than others, that is a clear sign of psychopathology. Story 12. Being a leader often requires hard work and self-sacrifice. No one desires these challenges. A good leader emerges because they seek what is best for those they lead, despite the personal costs, while a bad leader acts to avoid those costs and gain superficial benefits and power from their position. Story 13. Lee Kuan Yew was in tears when Singapore had independence thrust upon it. That said, he transformed the nation from a developing country into one of the richest countries on the planet. Truly amazing leadership. Story 14. Sometimes the right thing for your country is the wrong thing for you personally. People who aspire to power have a hard time making that sacrifice, if they can at all. Story 15. One of the most important qualities of a leader is knowing when to follow and modeling that behavior for the people they lead. If they inherently want to lead, it is their instinct to allow others to take the lead on a task, which can demonstrate that they are a better leader. Story 16. Yes and no. People who seek leadership solely for personal power, privilege, or benefits are rarely effective leaders. They tend to prioritize their own needs over those of their teams. Individuals who are unexpectedly placed in leadership positions may succeed, but they might also lack the necessary skills to lead effectively. The objective should be to select individuals for leadership roles who are comfortable with the responsibilities and have a good understanding of their own egos. This approach ensures that leaders prioritize their teams and are not overwhelmed by the challenges of leadership. Story 17. Doing what is best is boring and incredibly dull. It requires fighting to get a bridge updated for safety or to sit for weeks negotiating a peace that could be achieved militarily in days. Working with people who want you gone and your name erased from history just to ensure children do not go hungry. This is not unique to any one time period or nation. It is the structure of power and authority. A great leader does not want people to follow them. They want to enable others to take care of things themselves. Be well informed, but also engaged, encouraging participation from everyone, regardless of status. Those who seek to take on that responsibility are often individuals who desire to be followed, remembered, and wield power. We reward this behavior. Narcissists gain fame or power. We claim to admire leaders like Jimmy Carter, but few demand those who truly serve. We accept leaders like Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, and Mitch McConnell as if we have no choice. Yet we always have one. People want to be led and told what to do. The American right shows this in obvious ways, but the left does as well. This has been the case since the time of pharaohs and emperors and will remain so until we are mere dust in the void. Story 18. Someone who seeks power over others as an end in itself is probably not the most empathetic individual. Not wanting power is normal. Wanting it can be a symptom of a serious character defect. Story 19. Almost all great leaders dislike their roles because the way to become an exceptional leader is by constantly worrying, both on and off the clock, about the impact of their decisions and how to alleviate any resulting suffering. Consider the challenges of customer service, and now imagine thousands are suffering because someone believes they did not receive their fair share of recognition. A common mistake is overlooking survivorship bias. Indeed, nearly every effective leader may feel discontent in their role. However, many ineffective leaders also dislike their positions but tend to leave as soon as they can because they do not want to be there and do not contribute positively to the situation. Story 20. Wanting power is not inherently bad. The desire to make change without power is simply a philosophical perspective. However, the inclination to pursue such changes may attract individuals whom, broadly speaking, we might not want to hold positions of power. Story 21. I am indifferent to this. A good leader is someone who does not aspire to be a boss. Many people aspire to be a boss, but they should never be leaders. To me, the better leaders are those with experience. A leader should ideally know more than everyone they are leading. While this is not a necessity, it is quite helpful. At some point, this becomes impossible on a larger scale. The goal is for the leader to surround themselves with the best talent available. In a way, you want to become the least knowledgeable person in the room. If you do everything right, you should essentially eliminate your own need for control. The focus then shifts to supporting and enabling others. You work to help them function better. A good leader is a servant to the people they lead. Story 22. I don't think this is remotely true. Of course, someone who doesn't want to be a leader can be a great leader. The argument is that this individual would not consider their political career and would make the best unbiased decisions for the population at large. In contrast, this prominent individual is also likely to have no idea how a complicated political system operates and may be particularly susceptible to manipulation. History is full of examples of lifelong politicians being great leaders, such as Abraham Lincoln or Franklin D. Roosevelt. Story 23. A leader should act in the interest of the group, not the other way around. This aligns with my perception of your statement about leadership. Story 24. They are not driven by ego, do not seek the spotlight, and will not pursue easy money because they do not care about being wealthy or famous. Story 25. It is a simplification, but the perception is this. People who want to be leaders often have self-serving or greedy reasons for desiring the power and control that come with leadership. People who do not want to be leaders are more likely to understand the corruption and filth that accompany such power and want no part of it for moral or altruistic reasons. The irony is that the latter group is exactly the people best suited to clean up or rise above the corruption and filth surrounding powerful leadership positions, yet they are the ones who are most concerned about being engulfed by it and succumbing to it themselves. Therefore, we have a catch-22. The outcome is that those who would be best at the job desire it the least, while those who would be terrible at the job desire it the most. Obviously, this is a massive generalization, and there is plenty of nuance regarding levels of leadership and the existence of assertive yet benevolent leaders. But that is the gist of it. Story 26. It's a common belief that people generally prefer leaders who are called to a position rather than those who seek power. It seems like these leaders are a more natural fit and more qualified, while those who pursue power are seen as manipulative and undeserving of their roles. In reality, all leaders want to be leaders. They simply do not express that desire openly. Story 27. The major problem with governing people is determining who gets to do it, or rather, who manages to convince others to allow them to govern. To summarize, it is a well-known fact that those who desire to rule are often the least suited for the task. In a further summary, anyone who is capable of becoming president should, under no circumstances, be allowed to hold the position. In conclusion, people present a challenge. Thus, we find ourselves in a situation with a succession of presidents who enjoy the trappings of power so much that they rarely realize they are not actually in control. And lurking in the shadows behind them, who can possibly govern if no one willing to do so can be trusted? Story 28. I run several charity committees. The reason I do this is that I was looking for a specific organization and found none in my community. I asked around and discovered that others wanted similar initiatives, such as a toy library, a preschool playgroup for my culture, and a garden-to-table food program for schools. So I started the ball rolling. I believe I had selfish reasons because these charities benefit me and my family. However, I also like to think I did it because I saw a need in my community and knew I could be of use. I didn't seek these roles for fame, profit, or power, or at least I don't think I did. I believe that makes a good leader. Additionally, I found simple, effective systems and delegate many tasks so if roles or people change, the system doesn't collapse. Story 29. People who do not want to parent may actually make the best parents. They have a better understanding of the gravity of the responsibilities and the potential challenges that may arise. Story 30. They are servant-minded and prioritize the well-being of others over themselves, so you might not notice them. Story 31. Depends on how best is defined. A power-hungry CEO might generate the highest profits for a company because they want to maintain their position for as long as possible, which means they need the company to perform well. However, best work conditions are unlikely to come from such an individual. Story 32. The risk one assumes to be responsible for the greater good of a population is tremendous. Every decision is a balancing act, and it's not always obvious what the correct choice is. Sometimes the correct choice is harder initially but beneficial in the long run, so it's not easily observed. Additionally, you deal with the constant scrutiny of critics. Politics is a game of deception, and wanting to be involved in it feels like sitting in a pool of weak acid. The longer you remain in it, the more damage you do to yourself, whether in mental health or the deterioration of your own morals. If you do it right, at the end of your tenure, you are expected only to take home the legacy you leave behind, despite any improvements you've made by sacrificing yourself. Story 33. Because they see how much work is needed to be a good leader. Those who only seek power have no intention of doing anything beyond the bare minimum, if that. Story 34. They see themselves as servants to the people. They do not thrive on power. They thrive on accomplishments that improve the whole community, not just their own interests. In short, they think of others' best interests before their own and do not care for the prestige of being called a leader. Story 35. Being a good teacher means you can work with your students, usually one-on-one. When you have a large group of people to address, there is no way you can meet their needs. Story 36. They can see beyond their own interests. Additionally, the majority of people who actively seek power are narcissists who believe they are entitled to it, And that is a dangerous outlook for any leader, as we have daily evidence. Story 37. Often, yes. The best leaders tend to be those who step up out of necessity rather than ambition. They lead because they care, not because they crave power. These individuals prioritize the team over their ego, make decisions with integrity, and view leadership not as a status symbol but as a responsibility. History is full of reluctant leaders who changed the world precisely because they weren't obsessed with ruling it. Story 38. They don't seek glory. They take accountability and initiative for the greater good when other leaders would not tarnish their public image. They are in service to the people, not to themselves. Story 39. Not sure if that's always the case, but I imagine people who do not want to be in charge may have certain advantages over those who do. For starters, they are unlikely to have ulterior motives, as many people seek leadership roles for wealth, power, or ego. However, if you are in charge but do not want to be, it becomes just a job, one you are likely to try to perform well to ensure everything goes smoothly. Story 40. Can you imagine how much the world would be different if Michelle Obama ran and got elected? She would be a great example of leadership. Story 41. Because someone who knows how to actually lead people understands the challenges involved and therefore wants none of it. Story 42. The best leaders are on a journey, bringing people with them. Anyone who desires to be a leader without a clear vision is simply seeking power. Story 43. Objectivity is important. Leaders without ulterior motives understand that their decisions impact people and are less likely to make choices for their own benefit or the benefit of a select few. In reality, situations are rarely isolated. The only real-world scenario I know of where leadership transitions occur is during field promotions following the loss of squad leaders. Story 44. The saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, should be modified to, power corrupts the corruptible. Those who seek to have power and control over others are inherently corruptible. It becomes about them and only them, rather than serving others. Story 45. My team thinks I'm a great leader. I feel scared but can't show it. I do what is best for the team, even if it's detrimental to me. I see my role as the one responsible for keeping my team happy and capable, and I also cover for all of them. I advocate for them. However, I don't feel like a leader. I would rather relax at home, but I know the value I can bring to my team, so we stay. Story 46. They take charge because no one else will step up and lead. All they want is to handle the situation and step back. People who desire to be leaders are often in it for power and do not step down unless they are forced to, regardless of how poor their leadership becomes. A couple of examples of leaders who do not wish to be leaders might be former President James K. Polk and Jonah from the Old Testament. Story 47. I don't believe that all individuals who do not want to lead are necessarily better leaders. Those who are compelled to step forward often possess inherent leadership qualities. It seems that those who are reluctant to assume leadership roles may actually make better leaders. Individuals who seek power and recognition can achieve their goals if they put in the effort, but they may lack a solid focus on developing leadership skills. Some people who aspire to lead are effective leaders, but many are not. Story 48. Many people discuss the moral and personality implications, suggesting that those who do not seek leadership may be less selfish. However, there is an additional aspect that often gets overlooked. The primary role of leaders is to solve and navigate problems, which often requires them to be granted power. Many individuals are drawn to power, but few are attracted to responsibility. Those who aspire to leadership roles often do so with the understanding that the only way to maintain their power is to ensure that problems persist which only they can resolve. As a result, ineffective leaders may leave issues unresolved or even create new problems to reinforce their perceived necessity. In contrast, individuals who do not desire to lead typically aim to complete their tasks efficiently. For them, power does not outweigh the burden of responsibility. They step into their roles, address the problem at hand because it is required, and then seek the quickest way out. While they may not leave every situation flawless, they strive to solve the specific problem for which they were chosen to the best of their ability as swiftly as possible. Thus, those who are reluctant to lead often make better leaders because their motivations align more closely with the actual demands of the role. Story 49. Well, it's absolutely true that there is no such thing as a perfect leader. Most people attracted to power carry some significant red flags. However, every once in a while, there are real individuals, real people whom history treats kindly, only because ignoring their sacrifices would be too painful. America is at a real crossroads where they venerate figures like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, but do not understand why. It feels like just another boring history class they had to sit through. Story 50. Yes, on average, authenticity is important. In detail, when you try to obtain something, it often involves performing, whether it's manipulating your peers or even yourself, to be perceived as the best possible candidate for a position. Ultimately, this may lead you to focus on actions that enhance your popularity rather than on what truly needs to be done. Story 51. It's not true. There are plenty of people who don't want to be leaders who later struggle with being a leader. Story 52. Because it is challenging when we become leaders, we feel like everyone is our responsibility. You may love it at first, but it can become very boring and frustrating over time. Story 53. That has been my experience. Leaders who do not want to be in leadership positions focus on the responsibilities, while those who desire to lead focus on the benefits of being a leader. Story 54. Some of the best leaders genuinely wanted to lead. Are we referring to a manager who delegates all tasks? Are we discussing a military leader who guides their troops into battle? It's likely a spectrum, just like everything else. Story 55. It's not about not wanting to be a leader. It's about not wanting to serve yourself. A leader who doesn't want to lead can become disengaged and merely clock in to collect a paycheck. Anyone who has experienced small-town governance will instantly recognize what I am talking about. The best leaders are those who genuinely want to help and understand that it is best to step down when their assistance is no longer needed. Story 56. One way to look at it is that the best priests are not attracted to young boys. There is a lot of temptation associated with power. It requires a significant amount of effort, and it seems odd if someone genuinely wants to take on that responsibility. Don't you think it would be strange if your boyfriend or girlfriend said to you, "Hey, can I clean your bathroom all the time?" Wouldn't you think they have a fetish or something? The best bathroom cleaners do not do it because they have a fetish. They do it because they have to. Story 57. A factor that isn't mentioned is that the skills needed to be elected leader in a democracy are not the same skills required to actually be a good leader. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.